Johnny here. Today's video is going to be on nausea. Why do I feel so nauseous? What is happening in my body that's driving that? And before we do, please smash that like button. Really helps the search algorithm. Also, put your comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the topic and things that you've done personally that's helped. All right, so let's dive in. So, nausea. What's happening with nausea? So, nausea is a couple of different things happening, okay? So, first off, indigestion, just not breaking down food adequately, especially protein and fat, is notorious for driving nausea, right? That's kind of that unsettling feeling either before you eat, sometimes people have it in the morning, and or around mealtime and or around stressful events. So first off, indigestion, not having enough stomach acid or enzymes and or bile salt. So a big issue with nausea is not being able to break down fat as well, typically fat and protein, because these foods are harder to digest. And if we don't have enough digestive secretions, enzymes, acids, bile support, we may feel a little bit nauseous because we're not breaking that food down. Now, when we're not breaking the food down, what's happening? Well, we're having typically fermentation, rancidification, putrefaction. Essentially, putrefaction and rancidification is protein and fat kind of rotting and not breaking down adequately. And that can create stress. Okay. Going into a meal when you're stressed, you have that sympathetic nervous system, that fight or flight nervous system response in overdrive due to a stressful event. Maybe you're just chronically inflamed due to poor diet and stress and poor sleep. You could be waking up with a big cortisol surge, right? It's a lot on your plate emotionally. Maybe you're keeping your body inflamed with lots of poor food and gut inflammation. Either way, your sympathetic, your fight or flight nervous system is in overdrive, right? The parasympathetic, that's the brake pedal, that's the relaxation, repair. That helps bring blood flow into the intestines to help with digestive breakdown and digestive juices. The sympathetic nervous system shunts all blood, it detours it to the extremities so you can fight and flee and run. And if you're waking up in this chronic inflammatory state, or you're emotionally stressed and your adrenals are in overdrive and you're secreting lots of cortisol and or adrenaline, or your adrenals are chronically depleted, that may be creating this sympathetic overdrive and shunting all of your digestive fluids away from the body and blood flow away from the body. So the first thing you have to do is understand where that stress is coming from. Either it's physical stress, emotional stress, or underlying chemical stress. And so easiest thing is if we're really stressed in the morning, sometimes doing a liquid meal or something kind of pre-digested like a soup or stew, or doing some kind of a collagen bone broth type of smoothie or drink can be easier because most of the protein and fats kind of liquefied and already pre-digested. That can help a lot. And obviously adding in hydrochloric acid and enzymes and bile support when necessary. If we're not breaking down our foods really good, we're going to have a lot of that happening. Also, if we have chronic intestinal inflammation, whether it's from a food allergy, which I kind of already mentioned earlier, it could be from infections, right? Parasite infections, Giardia, Entamoeba histolytica. H. pylori is notorious because that can jack up and create gastritis in the stomach, inflame that gut lining, but it can also lessen stomach acid, and that can be a problem too. So we can have different gut bugs that are creating internal stress, and you may have to get to the root cause by knocking down some of the bugs, knocking down some of the dysbiotic imbalance or small intestinal bacterial overgrowth imbalance. So these are all really important things to look at. Now, when it comes to the adrenals, we could have circadian rhythm issues where our cortisol is really high, or it could be reversed. Its cortisol is low and goes higher at night, and it's kind of a lower, flatter, reverse rhythm. These could all be signs of stress, and you would want to get on some kind of adrenal program using adaptogens, different nutrients to really help smooth out that cortisol and really get that sympathetic nervous system calmed down so we can get that parasympathetic, that vagus nerve activated so we can heal, repair, and digest better. So big things out of the gate, things like ginger tea can be very soothing, helping with nausea, utilizing different enzymes, HCl and bile support can really help the fat and protein breakdown. So in my line, we use Liver Supreme, which has some ox bile in there for fat, but also some things like dandelion, French tree, beetroot, things to help thin out and help improve bile flow, which is really important. Of course, adding in acidity can be helpful as long as you can take it. Some people, they're chronically stressed where they have atrophic gastritis, where that gut lining in the stomach is thinned out, and they may not be able to tolerate much acidity. So you can test that out with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and some water, a few minutes before a meal, see how you feel. If you do okay with it, then you can work on adding in some hydrochloric acid after that. Again, you really want to work with a good functional medicine practitioner that can figure out what's driving it. It's easy to say, oh, just drink some ginger. Oh, do this because you want to make sure you get to the root cause. So, for instance, like morning sickness, if you're pregnant, high levels of HCG can be a big driving thing with nausea. And so usually supporting liver gallbladder and or supporting ginger can be very helpful and that very anti nausea properties. Also, ginger helps with gastroparesis. So things that are just where your food sits in the intestines too long and doesn't have good motility, ginger or different types of bitters, right? Anise, chamomile, gentian, orange peel, lemon, lime. These are nice little bitters that can help your digestive tract kind of empty and keep food moving versus being stagnant. And again, usually when food's stagnant, that migrator motor complex can get dysregulated. And one of the big things that dysregulates it is bacterial imbalance, as well as that sympathetic nervous system being in overdrive. So you really want to get to the bottom of all this. And again, it's easy for your conventional medical doctor just to give you an anti-nausea. Here's a Dramamine medication, right? They're going to just control the symptoms and not really figure out why the physiology isn't working well. When the physiology doesn't work well, symptoms manifest. And now what do? You're kind of looking at playing Band-Aid work and hoping the medications you use don't have more side effects worse than the problem. And then also you're ignoring the root physiological underlying cause. So then over time, your problems could potentially get worse, right? Because you're not fixing the underlying issue. So you really got to look at everything very holistically here out of the gates. So big thing out of the gates, different supplements, right? Ginger, HCl Supreme, Enzyme Synergy, Liver Supreme, very powerful things. If your gut's chronically inflamed, we may use healing, soothing, calming nutrients like glutamine, DGL, zinc, okra, vitamin U. We have a powder called GI Restore that we use that has some of these nutrients, things that calm down the intestinal tract, can also help that fight or flight nervous system. So with these issues, the problem is there's not just like one issue, like, oh, you have this, you have nausea, it's got to be this. It's not. There's a lot of different underlying issues. So you need to work with someone who's a kind of a physiology, biochemistry detective that looks at the symptoms, goes upstream to the different systems that are out of balance, uses good history and fact finding and maybe some lab testing to look at these different systems and find the weak link. And again, the weak link matters, but you typically, if you have a weak link and a semi-weak link, you still got to fix it all, right? But you want to know where the weak links are at and really get a whole kind of prioritization down so you can work on getting to the root cause. So again, this is Dr. J here. If you have nausea, chronic digestive issues, maybe that nausea is accompanied with burping, bloating, belching, constipation, diarrhea, you really want to get to the root cause. I'll put my link down below here to some of the products that we mentioned, as well as access to myself. I'm available worldwide for consult support. My staff and my team are, and we're happy to help you out. Feel free to click down below. If you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up, comments down below. Let me know what you think, and y'all have a phenomenal day. Take care. Bye now.